Greetings and welcome to the channel, the Shotgun Shogun, and this is another episode of Ballin on a Budget, where we talk about 3 stars and below characters in Epic 7 and how to, in fact, ball on a budget. And today we are going to be talking about All-Rounder Wanda, and All-Rounder Wanda is one of my favorite 3-star characters. I've been very hype about this character ever since the specialty change came out, and with the upcoming characters that are going to be using a lot of stealth, or not stealth, but evasion, this is going to be a very key unit that you are going to want to build. Not only that, but she shines very, very highly in Guild Wars. We are going to be showing her applications. We're going to be talking about her applications outside of just hitting evasive units. Now, if you've ever run into a Fat Cat, that's Assassin Cartusia, or a Violet in Guild Wars or Arena or RTA, you will realize how annoying the evasion is. And for those of you who haven't ran into that, just think of an Arbiter Vildred with a Moonlight Dreamblade, or literally anybody with a Moonlight Dreamblade, and how beyond annoying it is to see that miss. So one of the things that they did put into the game was All-Rounder Wanda. Now, previously Wanda was just used for target on Banshee, and that was kind of her entire role. Most people didn't use her for anything else. However, with her specialty change, she is a very disgustingly good control character, and I personally highly like control characters. Now, I do want to give a big shout out to Epic7db.com, where I do use them quite often for most of my data gathering. Not only that, but their site just looks really, really slick. But first off, let's get into Wanda's stats down here. This is going to be at level 60 with all 6-star awakenings. Now, 1005 attack, 532 defense, 4,693 health, 109 base speed is actually not too bad. You do get increased effectiveness through your awakenings, and you have the base of everything else, right? So not too bad overall for a 3-star stat line. This is obviously going to mean that there are certain things here that flat stats are going to come a little bit close on being better for. I do believe she is at the borderline of defense, where flat defense could benefit her almost as good as percent defense if you have better substats, or that is a substat that you have on there as well. Health is pretty low, honestly, but I don't believe that it crests the flat stat. I'd have to check that again. If you do want, I do have a video on flat stats. There is also a link to a phenomenal spreadsheet on flat stats. But anyways, we'll take a look at her imprint here. It's team-wide attack or self-attack. Personally, I keep it on team-wide attack because it's just more beneficial than 144 personal attack. I can give everybody 96 attack. So that just benefits everybody else, because personally I think that she is built more for a fast single target control build and supplemental support. Now, that's not saying that she can't do DPS, and we will talk about that as well, but I do think that she should be seen more in the support control role, kind of like a Falconeer Quarry, who isn't built like a tank but is more built towards support and control. So that's one of the things that you really want to think about with her when you're building her, and how you are going to efficiently use her. Now, her first skill is Weak Point, and this shoots an arrow at the enemy when the enemy is targeted. However, damage dealt is increased and their combat readiness is decreased by 10%. Now, this can go up to 15% reduction on their combat readiness, which is very, very powerful. If you combine this with dual attacks, if you combine this with other things that we'll talk about here in a minute, this is very good at controlling and pushing units back. As you know, in any sort of PvP, CR control manipulation is super key. Now, her second skill is Steady Aim. This has this 80% chance to target an enemy for 2 turns at the beginning of each turn. If you skill this up, it's a 100% chance. Now, it does suck a little bit when you target the same target with target for 2 turns. It's better if it if it meshes amongst everybody. Now, this is actually pretty good if you run her with other characters that have target, maybe another ranger that has Song of Stars on. So if you're running her potentially with like an elf out with Song of Stars, this could be a very good combo. That way you get target onto everybody. And actually, target is going to help you out with evasion units as well, because not only does target increase your damage by 15%, but it gives you a 15% hit chance, which stacks on top of all of her abilities, which we'll go over in her awakening tree here in a minute. Now, her S3 is one shot, one kill. Attacks the enemy by exploding a flare with a 80% chance to stun for 2 turns and a 50% chance to make them unhealable for 2 turns. Now, this will go up to a 100% stun chance with a 50% chance to make them unhealable for 2 turns. Now, if you do soul burn, this is going to ignore effect resistance, so there's no 15% here. And one of the big things that I feel a lot of people don't take into consideration with this is you don't always necessarily have to stun a DPS, right? So I heard in the past some complaints where, well, if a DPS just gets stunned, your support will just cleanse them or put debuff immunity on them or something along those lines. A Momo is a good counter for her. Well, you don't always have to stun your DPS. You can soul burn onto the support, and then they're stunned for 2 turns and they can't be healed. So if you stun their support and then kill their DPS, you have that option. Now, if they can't cleanse, you can stun their DPS and you have the potential to make them unhealable for 2 turns, meaning that their support just kind of has to stand there and look at them while you kill them for 2 turns. Or do you just leave them and then kill the support? This is a very versatile skill, which is just very phenomenal in controlling the battlefield. So we're going to go over some of the artifacts that she can use, and then we're going to talk about her tree, how to build her, and in what situations she is good for. Now, if you previously pulled on the Elfelt banner and you were able to get Misconfile, this is actually a very good one, because not only are you going to be inflicting target with your S2, you have the potential of inflicting defense break on to your target with your single target attacks, right? So this means that you can stack up both target and defense break. So this is very good if you do have it. If not, then there are many other options, but I do think that this is very, very good considering all of her skills are single target. You will be putting up quite a few defense breaks as well. Now, this is the personal preference of artifact that I really like, and the one that I actually run on my own SC Wanda, and this is Sword of Judgment. Now, this gives you a 20% chance to attack again with a basic skill when the target survives a single attack. Now, this can only be used once per turn. So since you are probably not going to be running her on counter attack or anything along those lines, this is very, very phenomenal, meaning that you can push them back 30% if you dual attack on your S1 and they're targeted. So this is very, very overpowered on her, because you do have that chance to double attack. You're going to be doing more damage, you're going to be doing more pushback, you're going to be cooling down your S3 more often. This is probably the core artifact for an SC Wanda. Now, if you are not balling on a huge budget and you don't have a maxed out Sword of Judgment or a Sword of Judgment at all, you can use things like Infinity Basket and Rosa for the dual attacks. Now, this is better, I believe, I feel, on Rosa, because this increases your dual attack chance, so that way you can go on other people's turn. This one here is going to just increase everybody else's double attack chance, so that way you just do more double attacks with everybody else. I think the Rosa's better, so that you can get the double attacks, so that you can push back on targeted enemies. You also have Sachet, which increases combat radius of all allies by 16% when the enemy is defeated. So this is good, but mostly from a PvP standpoint, and I do think that you would get more mileage out of a Rosa or a Sword of Judgment than this one. Now, an alternative, and one that I've been testing out a little bit, is Andre's Crossbow, and this gives you a chance to remove souls after single target attacks. Now, because you're going to want SC Wanda to be very fast, this means that you're going to be burning a lot of their souls off, and soul control manipulation coupled with CR manipulation is very, very strong in PvP, because a lot of times you rely on those soul burns, and if you are negating the enemy's soul burns or soul burn chances, you're going to be in a much better place from a control standpoint. Couple this with, let's say, an Assassin Sid or a Tywin, then you are going to have just absolute soul manipulation control, and that is very strong. It's something that I've been kind of looking into. And now for 3-star artifacts, this is actually probably one of my favorite 3-star artifacts on anybody that I need to go Sonic fast, and that is Ranon's Memorandum. I call it Memorandum, and this increases speed by 2% after attacking. This can stack up to 10 times, meaning that this gives you, after 10 of your turns, 20% increased speed. Now, you do want to use this on characters that you are going to potentially have to stall out, and I think SC Wanda, because of the control, is one of those units, right? You're not going to run her on a speed cleave team. You're going to want to run her on something that is slower, that you're going to be able to take those 10 turns, because this is just going to make it so that she's lapping people a lot faster. You're getting more pushback, you're getting more cooldowns, you're getting more control, you're increasing the arena debuff, and you're in RTA. Now, you don't want to do this on offense in arena PvP normal, because you're increasing the amount of damage that your team would take. This is also amazing in Guild Wars, where you know that it's going to take you a minute to kill them, because you're going to be able to stack this up, and then you're just going to be able to lap and lap and lap and push back, stun, all that, all kinds of stuff. I love this. I actually have 3 of these at plus 30, because I just run them on almost everybody that I need that is going to just go super fast. Cerise, F. Clury. I've ran it on a Speed Dart Corvus before. It was definitely interesting. This is probably one of my favorite 3-star artifacts in the game. And then you also have Oath Key. If all of the abilities to bypass evasion on her aren't enough for you, just give her another 20% hit chance that stacks with everything else in her kit. That means that on her S3, which we'll talk about her tree here in a second, she's already got a 70% chance to bypass evasion. This would put it at 90%. That's pretty ridiculous right there. Couple it with a couple other things, you can get a 100% chance. So, okay, we went through all of that, and now I'm going to show you guys my Wanda real quick, and we're going to go over her tree and everything. As you can see, I did build her speed hit. I do have some 90 gear here, so my stats are a little bit higher than the typical, but I do have 221 speed. As you can see, I did build her fairly tanky, and the reason being is that I need her to stick around. I don't necessarily need her to do a lot of damage. However, this build actually will do a reasonable amount of damage against targeted units, but you do want her to be fast, and you do want her to be able to take some hits, because even though she gains stealth on her S3, she is going to be she's going to take some damage, right? You don't want her to be super tanky, but because you want her to do something, but you also don't want her to be a glass cannon, because they will just delete her off of the map. Now, as you can see, I do have 72% of effectiveness in her, and that's because I typically use her to take out DPS targets who aren't going to be running very high effect resist. Not only that, but I can soul burn that S3 to bypass that effect resist and nail some heavier effect resist tanky targets. So I do like her very fast, so I can get those cycles through, I can get the targets up, I can do some damage, I can push back, and I can go from there, and then utilize her obviously for other things. Now, I do run a crit chance main stat neck, one because the defense on this is just absolutely utterly disgusting and I needed defense, but because I also want her to crit, because I do want her to do reasonable amounts of damage. Now, I could go with, something else in her next slot, but I feel like the amount of critical chance that I got from a crit stat main neck gives me the flexibility to put stats into other things around that she really needs, like the hit points, like the speed, like the effectiveness. Now I do have 34% effect resist on her, which just came as a part of one of the pieces. I couldn't get away from too much effect resist. If I had this optimal, I would put maybe another 100 into defense and a little bit more speed just to make her faster and lap a little bit more. Now, if we go into her awakening tree, so we're going to go in here. Now, she gains a lot of effectiveness from her tree as well, so this is definitely going to help you out. You also get increased health, which is going to keep her alive, more effectiveness. Now, this one right here is pretty good because not only do you decrease their combat readiness, but you increase your own combat readiness when you are using weak point, and that is her skill 1. Let me make sure. Yeah, skill 1 is weak point because their skill 3 is one shot, one kill. Now we come over here, and this is going to increase your S1's hit chance by 40%. Now this is going to easily bypass a Moonlight Dreamblade. This will bypass almost all of MRSA's of passive evasion. This will bypass a Moonlight Dreamblade with an Assassin Cartuja on the team. Now, if she is hitting somebody with target, which you should almost always be, that's going to be a 55% chance to hit with weak point. Now, that's going to bypass a Violet's S2, MRSA's S2. This is going to bypass quite a bit of stuff here. So, at 55% chance with the target on, you're going to be hitting pretty much everything that you fire at, unless it's like a MRSA with a Fat Cat and a Moonlight Dreamblade, but we'll go into that on her S3. Now, Obscurity Rune, this is a 100% chance to be granted that stealth for 2 turns when using one shot, one kill. And stealth not only makes her untargetable, which is very nice, but you do have to avoid those AoEs, and stealth actually decreases the damage that you take from AoEs, so making her extra tanky will help you survive through all of those AoE skills. Now, Wedge Rune, this is going to increase the chance of inflicting unhealable by 50% when using one shot, one kill. This is going to mean that you have a 100% chance to stun, as well as a 100% chance to inflict unhealable, which is very, very strong. So we got here, Speed Rune has a 15% chance to be granted increased speed for 2 turns at the end of the turn. Now, 15% chance, not that big, but any chance is better than no chance. Now, Recreation Rune has 25% chance to decrease the cooldown of one shot, one kill by 1 turn when the enemy is targeted when using weak points. So if you're hitting a targeted unit, you have a 25% chance to reduce that skill cooldown on S3. Now, if you're using Sword of Judgment, you can hit twice, meaning that if you're hitting a targeted target, you have multiple chances to reduce that skill cooldown on S3, which isn't very long in the first place. So you're going to be cycling this very, very fast, and it is really, really awesome. Now, this isn't going to increase your hit chance of one shot, one kill by 70%. If you're hitting somebody with target, that's 85%, meaning that most things in the game, even stacking evasion, are going to get hit by this. So let's say you have MRSA, who has 50% passive. You add in a Moonlight Dreamblade, that takes you up to what, 70% passive? Now, if you add in an Assassin Cartuja, that's extra 15%, that's 85%. If you get that target onto MRSA, you have a 100% chance to hit her with the S3, meaning that she is very, very viable at bypassing the evasion units that are going to be coming out, because even with evasion buff, even with Violet's Talisman, even with Assassin Cartuja, you're going to be able to hit them with the S3. So that's why building this unit right now is very, very important. Not only that, doesn't require Molagoras because she's a 3-star, so you can ball a lot harder on a budget. Now, if you take a look here, this is, like I said, 4 turns, very short-ish cooldown. So if you are getting those S1 procs, you're going to be using this quite often. And if you can even just get 1 proc off on this to reduce this to 3 turns, you're going to be having a very high uptime on your S3 just locking people down, making them unhealable. Your S2 you want to max out, and then your S1 actually, when you have it maxed out, does some reasonable amounts of damage. Now, I did run this through the damage calculator, my stats, just to show you a little bit of how good this damage can be. Now, let me enhance. Okay, so as you can see here, I do have the 2307 attack. I didn't put an artifact in because, well, I'm going to use Sword of Judgment. 175 crit damage. Meh, I gave her increased attack because I am going to theoretically have some sort of attack buffer on the team, right? So if you are hitting an elemental advantage target, let's say they have 1,000 defense, no damage reduction, anything like that for some particular reason, your S1 is going to be hitting for 5154, and your S3 is going to be hitting for about 7,500, which, you know, is no slouch of damage. Now, is it as much as a pure DPS unit? No, absolutely not. But as a support sub DPS, I think that is reasonable amounts of damage. Now, if you do take off elemental advantage and increased attack, you're still hitting for about 4,500, but you're going to be hitting very fast and you're going to be controlling, and that's where you bring in other units to make up for that damage that she will be potentially lacking. So that is, like I said, taking off increased attack, taking off elemental advantage. With just attack, you are still going to be hitting for about 7,000, which is pretty big. The control factor that she brings to the table is one of the more important things that she does in general. So as a unit, I think that she's a very good investment, and I do think that if you want to ball on a budget, you can definitely do that. I will leave some links down below to Guild Wars videos and PvP videos that I have done showcasing SC Wanda. She is a unit that I use quite often in Guild Wars, just because the reduced amount of units that are there reduces the amount of danger that she is in, based on, you know, her being a little bit on the more glass cannon-y side, the lower base stats, but I do think that she is very amazing. And I think that if you do want to increase the viability of your account and being able to counter current meta units and future meta units, that she is a very good investment. As always, guys, if you do like this content and you find it helpful, let me know down below. Throw in a sub if you want to. If you do, hit that bell notification. I do want to thank Epic7 BB as well as Math for the amazing work that they do on these sites and these tools in order to, you know, provide some super good content for the community. And if you do find this helpful and you want to help the channel out, think about going over to my Patreon or just share this out, because it always helps me. As always, guys, I will catch you on the next one. Take it easy, homies. Peace.
Cracky.